A veteran of World War I, who has not been seen or heard from in almost half a century, has been the subject of a murder charge brought against a 74-year-old Queensman who has been charged in connection with a man's death. A World War I veteran called George Clarence Seitz, who was 81 years old at the time, left his house in Jamaica, Queens on December 10, 1976, in order to receive a decent haircut at a barbershop that was located nearby. The elderly guy unexpectedly vanished into thin air, leaving behind no indications as to where he went after leaving the house, or what may have happened to him after stepping out to complete a routine daily duty. The mystery surrounding the man's disappearance remains unsolved. Before Sharon Crowley revealed how the NYPD claimed to have solved the cold case murder, the answers to these questions would remain a secret. The charming neighborhood of Jamaica, which can be found in the borough of Queens in the city of New York, is the stage for today's story. Jamaica, which is located in the borough of Queens, is one of the counties in Queens that has the greatest racial and ethnic diversity. As a result, it emits an authentic vibrancy. The apple of our eye during World War I, George Clarence Seitz, who went by the name Clarence, was a loyal soldier who served both his country and his youth. Clarence served under the name Clarence. As he retired, he was content to live a solitary life and rented a nice house for himself to call his own. Seitz's life, like the lives of tens of thousands of other people's, was not devoid of challenges and difficulties. Despite the fact that it appeared from the outside, the war veteran lived his life according to his own terms. For example, Seitz had a difficult time not using the vulgar B word. He was a man of discipline, as evidenced by the fact that his clothes was always clean and crisp, his house was always spotless, his hair was always clipped, and he presented an overall nice image. Nobody could have ever guessed that he would suddenly disappear one day while going about something as routine as they were doing at the time. On December 10, 1976, at approximately 10 in the morning, the older man went to get haircuts at a barbershop in the neighborhood. This barbershop was only 2.5 streets from his residence, which could be found as Seitz's family did not make the decision to report him missing until 5 days after he vanished without a trace for unknown reasons. Despite the fact that the authorities started the search right away, there was very little information to rely on. He did not leave any traces or hints behind, not even a single one. Investigators who looked into his disappearance could only theorize about what might have happened to him. In an effort to gather information, the deputies conducted a number of interviews. Nevertheless, the leads they discovered were insufficient to warrant further investigation. At the time, the authorities were completely ignorant that Seitz had vanished. He did not leave any traces or hints behind, not even a single one. She had a clear recollection of the incident's particulars and provided the authorities with a precise location, despite the fact that she was unable to verify the identity of the victim who had been injured. When questioned why she had been quiet all those years, she said that she was terrified of revenge. Yet in the end, she came forward because she could no longer live with the burden. It turned out that the man the mother was dating was a Jamaican native by the name of Martin Matta, who had been a resident of that country for a very extended period of time. It's interesting to note that Martin Matta and his brother ran a barbershop in Jamaica known as the Hair Cutter together. The store was only operational from the 1970s to the 1980s, and it's believed that George Seitz, who was a regular client there, made his final stop there before passing away. The retail establishment was founded on Jamaica's 161st Street. In 1976, when the Seitz vanished, the slogan had only turned 29 years old. Shortly after the occurrence, the barbershop was closed down. Nevertheless, the police did not immediately connect the murder to those who had gone missing over the same time span that the woman had predicted. The woman's statement was so detailed, in spite of the incredible scenario she told, that they decided to start conducting an exhaustive investigation of the property. On March 12, 2019, the authorities conducted a search warrant at a residence in Richmond Hill, located at 87.72 115th Street. The NYPD detectives deployed genetic DNA technology in an effort to positively identify the victim. Nevertheless, it seemed as though there was a problem with the circumstances. At that very instant, the law in New York only allowed the police to utilize that procedure when trying to identify a suspect, not a victim as opposed to other situations. Due to the absence of any such restriction in federal statute, the Federal Bureau of Investigation consented to participate in the inquiry. In order to positively identify individuals, the Queen County's District Attorney Office, the New York Police Department, and the FBI office in New York City all engaged them. an independent laboratory with experience in genetic genealogy and DNA sequencing. It was requested that the laboratory carry out an advanced DNA testing in the hopes that it would lead to the identification of a victim. This was accomplished with the help of the family tree that was constructed. Thankfully, the results of the search indicated that the victim's family members were still living in the states of Ohio and California. Immediately after the murders, Detectives Contreras and Gain from the Queens South Homicide Squad rushed out to Ohio to talk to the victims' families. Right away, Billy was able to deduce that this had anything to do with their absent family member. After that, they proceeded to explain to the cops how George Seitz had vanished after he had gone to get a haircut. After the DNA from his family was used to positively identify the body as belonging to George Clarence Seitz, his family continued to wonder what had become of him after the body was discovered and positively identified. In addition to that, they gave the investigators a sample of George Clarence's hair that had been taken from him. The Seitz family did not receive any answers to their questions of more than 40 years. The only thing left to wonder was what the motivation was. As a result of Matta's familiarity with Seitz' routines, it was hypothesized that he fatally stabbed Seitz in the head shortly after Seitz arrived at the barbershop and then robbed him of between $7,000 and $8,000. Seitz's death led to the development of this theory. Martin Matta, 75, was taken into custody in Jamaica at a residence where the homeowner claimed that Matta would sometimes stay as a favor to a friend of a friend. Matta was apprehended there. He was taken into custody, arraigned and remanded on a charge of willful murder by the Queens County District Attorney's Office. However, no additional charges can be brought against him because the statute of limitations will run out in October of 2022. Matta was taken into custody and brought into the office of the District Attorney for Queens County, where he was arraigned. Matta submitted a guilty plea to manslaughter on November 7, 2022. After escaping justice for the past 46 years, he was sentenced to a prison term of 20 years for the murder that occurred in 1976. The crime took place in the year 1976. We can only hold out hope that his loved ones will finally find some measure of closure after his remains have been identified and his murderer has been brought to justice. What are your opinions on this unfortunate event that occurred? The suffering that Martin Matta's family had to go through as a result of his callous actions will not be forgotten simply because he's being made to answer for his actions. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification before leaving. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.